brought to book. ZACC has therefore come up with the following steps in fighting the scourge in support of His Excellency's stance on zero tolerance to corruption. ZACC will engage Zimbabwe Republic Police to reach an understanding on matters that can be handled by the police and those that will be handled by ZACC. Our strategy is to have ZACC dealing with cases involving high-level corruption and cases involving high-profile members of society. Let me advise the nation that since my appointment, ZACC has received 38 cases of corruption, of which 10 are high-profile in nature. ZACC has already started thoroughly investigating these high-profile corruption cases. One has been referred to the National Prosecution Authority this morning for trial. I am, however, concerned that during these investigations, ZACC officers met resistance from some individuals in offices of high authority. However, I wish to assure the public that those who have attempted to defeat the cause of justice have been dealt with and have subsequently released the documentary evidence needed for investigations. Let everyone be warned that ZACC will not hesitate to do all in its powers to ensure that every case is investigated diligently without fear or favor. ZACC will in future prefer charges of obstructing the course of justice to anyone interfering with investigations, so be warned. As you are aware, corruption is a global phenomenon that requires globalized solutions due to the globalized nature of its activities and the networks of the criminals. I noted that ZACC led an investigation crack team that is sophisticated, well-paid, and technically sound to conduct thorough investigations, asset tracking, and asset recovery, thus building a strong asset recovery component in the fight against corruption. It is in that regard that ZACC is partnering national, regional, and international bodies to have our officers trained. I'm happy to report that such training has already begun. ZACC will soon be presenting remuneration proposals for its officers, which is in line with best practices, for instance, Botswana, Zambia, Mauritius, and Tanzania's anti-corruption agencies. This will ensure that the officers will not be susceptible to corruption. In-house, ZACC has put mechanisms of vetting dockets before referral to the National Prosecuting Authority. Be assured that we now have mechanisms in place to ensure quality investigations. As ZACC, we are aiming at 99% convictions for all matters taken to court. When I assumed office, no asset recoveries were taking place. I am happy to announce that ZACC has commenced parallel investigations in all its cases. That is, we are pursuing criminal investigations as well as investigations that will lead to civil forfeiture. No one is going to continue to benefit from ill-gotten wealth. It should be known and appreciated within our nation that crime does not pay. In that regard, I call on the powers that be to fast-track the money laundering and proceeds of crime amendment bill and enforcing unexplained wealth orders. The Commission wishes to highlight that some proceeds of crime have been diverted to churches in the name of tithing. We call upon church leaders to support the anti-corruption drive by scrutinizing the source of donations they receive from their congregants. ZACC wishes to reassure the members of the public that whistleblowers will be protected. The Commission has forwarded to the Attorney General its recommendations for a comprehensive whistleblower framework which is in line with the requirements of the provisions of the United Nations Conventions Against Corruption and other best practices. ZACC is in the process of activating all its toll-free lines which will be manned by dedicated officers. Prevention is better than cure, as the saying goes. As ZACC, we have the mandate to assess systems for both private and public institutions to plug loopholes for corruption. ZACC has conducted 6 system reviews involving 5 central hospitals and the Zimbabwe Schools Examination Council. The Commission has also conducted 2 compliance spot checks on the management of Cyclone Idai resources in Chimanimani and at the National Blood Services Zimbabwe. In all cases, the findings are of great concern to ZACC, and we implore the institution concerned to institute the corruption preventative measures recommended. It is our wish as ZACC that legislation amendments be made to the Anti-Corruption Commission Act to provide sanctions for non-compliance. We shall advocate for the strengthening of institutions with oversight roles in the fight against corruption, like the ZRP, NPA, Judicial Services Commission, Financial Intelligence Unit, Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, amongst others, by way of enhancing skills. The above institutions should also be fully resourced and capacitated in order to effectively carry out their functions. As ZACC, we have also noted that ministries that have an oversight role on state enterprises and parastatals are a cause for concern. Equally, companies run by majority shareholders of family business are of a serious concern in terms of their adherence to corporate governance principles. The government needs to urgently review the powers of ministries over state enterprises and parastatals under their purview to stem out this culture of looting in these state enterprises and parastatals by parent ministries. We also acknowledge receiving the recent report of the Auditor General of Zimbabwe tabled in Parliament. The contents of the report give rise to a very reasonable suspicion of incidences of either corruption, theft, misappropriation, abuse of power, and or other improper conduct in the public sector. In the circumstances and on the basis of the report of the Auditor General of Zimbabwe, ZACC has opened active investigations in respect of all ministries, government departments, state enterprises, and parastatals implicated in the report, with a view to bringing to book all those implicated in any and all acts of corruption, theft, misappropriation, abuse of power, and other improper conduct. From the same report, I noted with concern that ZACC did not submit its financial statements for 2018. I've been advised that ZACC has been behind in its submissions of financial statements due to incapacitation. ZACC submitted reports from 2012 to 2017 in June 2018, of which the Auditor General's office assisted with. We are in the process of finalizing the 2018 financial statements. I assure the nation that going forward, the Commission's financial statements will be submitted timelessly. We have also taken note of the trending list of alleged corrupt top government and ZANU-PF officials by the ZANU-PF Youth League. Without condoning the method used by the Youth League, we are summoning the Youth League to bring evidence of corruption against those implicated, with a view to prosecuting such corruption. Whilst ZACC is happy to announce that it now has powers of arrest, it, however, refers all completed investigations for prosecution to the National Prosecuting Authority. Once ZACC has investigated the matters and referred them to the National Prosecuting Authority for prosecution, that is the end of ZACC functions. ZACC will, however, take an interest in how the National Prosecuting Authority prosecute its matters, and shall be sitting in court for all ZACC cases to observe proceedings in court. We recognize that in order for ZACC to achieve its mandate, it requires a strong communication culture. ZACC will therefore embark on a cocktail of communication strategies, including always being available to brief the public through the media on the status of our operations. In conclusion, I wish to advise the media that the ZACC interim spokesperson shall be Mr. Silence Pondo, Secretary to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. He will be conducting future monthly briefings with the members of the press. I'm personally available on Twitter as Loice Matanda Moyo. The ZACC official Twitter handle is @ZACConline, and the official Facebook page is facebook.com/ZACConline. ZACC will communicate through these. Let's all resist and report corruption. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.